Hi, everybody. I'm Kay Helm, and this is the Your Voice podcast. Find your voice, tell your story, change the world. Each week, I interview someone about the way in which they live or tell their story. And this week, my guest is Brian Mays. Brian, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Hey, tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do.
The funny one that I tell people is I'm a creative, nerdy Pinterest dad. What that means is I have a lot of stuff that I get into. I'm a graphic designer. I'm working full-time as a graphic designer at a church in Oklahoma City right now. Mm-hmm. I've been a graphic designer since 1997. Along the way, I've picked up doing some portrait drawings that I kind of let slide for a couple of decades and got back into those a few years ago. And so I'm doing some portrait drawing here and there. And I'm also a teacher that teaches a lot of what I do to other people that are needing to pick up another skill or want to try a hobby or something like that.
So you got your hands in a lot of different things, but they're related in some way.
Yes, they are. Mm-hmm.
So in that creative space, maybe starting with the church, the church situation, what does a graphic designer do at a church?
A graphic designer at a church, we pretty much support the ministries of the church. The way I described it to some of the team is that our ministries, we offer a handshake to the world, and we make sure that handshake's as good as it can be. For instance, the website, we try to make the website look as sharp and professional as it can be. We try to make every little piece of media that we put out, and we put out a lot of video these days. We try to make that look as incredible as we can, because it's got to stand up not just to the media that other churches produce, but it's got to stand up to the media that the entire world produces, because they're all competing for time. So our competition isn't just churches. If you want to look at it and say churches have competition, our competition isn't just other churches. It's all these various different things that are vying for people's attention.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you've got still the most important message anybody's ever going to hear. So you need to make sure that's delivered well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because if it looks kind of shoddy, there's the old saying, never judge a book by its cover, but people do.
Yeah, they do.
So we need to make sure that we don't get judged in an inappropriate or a unnecessarily stressful way, because we're not because we haven't dressed up well for the interview. That might be a good way to put it.
Oh, that's a great way. Yeah. I've got this picture now of this kind of pastor with, the pants are too short and jacket doesn't fit, and then ties from the wrong decade. And,
Oh yeah. Yep. We've all seen them.
Yeah. And sometimes that's how we kind of present. We're like, here's this thing I did, isn't it awesome? And everybody's kind of like, we've moved along.
Well, and that's one of, I'll tell you, I have some soapboxes when it comes to churches and creativity. And one of them is that we just can't put that message out there and have it just kind of serve on its own. A lot of times that will work, but you can't just, like you said, say, here's a message that I have, and because I'm the church, you have to think it's wonderful.
Yeah.
And that's not always how that flies. So my wife won't let me go into the T-shirt sections of Christian bookstores because of that, because I get pretty critical. It's kind of snarky at times.
I could see how that happens.
So I'm not allowed there. I don't help youth groups with their shirts. I hate to say that, but I just can't.
It's good to have boundaries.
Yes.
So when you've got, so you're in charge of the media at your church, and you lead others?
I'm not in charge. We have a youth and media director that's in charge of it.
Okay.
But I'm the person that it comes through to make sure that it looks good before it goes to the public.
Awesome. So. Okay. All right. But part of that is you're teaching, bringing up others in similar roles, right?
Yes. I have a few people there that work in being a church the size that it is. We have people that overlap in some capacities and people that are new in some capacities and people that are part-time. And what I do is take them, because they're all a good deal younger than me. I take them and kind of guide them along. I try to just stay out of their business, to be honest, because I think that it's good for them to just kind of learn to walk and run as much as they can on their own. But I'll come in like maybe 10% of it or so and say, hey, let's try it from this angle. What if we made this bigger? What if we made this smaller? Once in a while, I've had to come in and just kind of scratch something and start over. But I try to give everyone a chance to exercise their own creativity, because they'll come up with something I don't.
Yeah.
That's how it always goes.
Yeah, and that's the great part about working on a team is that you're not kind of stuck in one track, so to speak, with one person's mind and those limitations. And I ask about that because I know in our church, training's a big thing, and we're told, train up somebody 10, 20 years younger than yourself, to do what you do. And I love that investment in the next generation.
Yeah, I'm in my 40s, and a lot of the people that I work directly with are in their 20s. They're young. They're still going to move around. And I look at my role in their professional lives as, let's help you be as good as you can wherever you're at. So let's instill in you some good habits. I've got one young lady. She's actually one of my students when I taught my last college classes. I hired her up there, and she's in there just kind of learning while she's still in school. She's learning how a real world graphic design scenario works. And it's a lot different from a school scenario.
Yeah, and I think even our ideas about creativity, and that was what first caught my eye in talking to you, was hearing you talk about teaching about creativity. And I think a lot of times we have misconceptions about what creativity is and what it isn't. Would you like to speak to that?
Oh, there's so much I could say, so you have to rein me in here and there.
Go for it.
I really get the stop boxes going there. I think the biggest misconception about creativity is that people think it's always fun. It's not always fun, especially when you're a professional, because I think a lot of people that I've talked with, especially people that don't do the type of work that I do day to day as a professional, they might do it here and there as a hobby or a sort of a side thing, that they might be a secretary doing the newsletter or something like that. And no insult intended to that if that's what someone does. I don't mean that at all in that way. But they're not living at 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. And when you're living at 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, there are times where the ideas just don't come. And you've still got to perform. And that's not fun. It's not fun trying to get water out of a dry well when it's not filled back up. And there's so many times throughout I've been in this over 20 years now. There's so many times where I've just had to go and do the best I can. And over time, you build up sort of a visual language in your mind that you can fall back on. You can do respectable work. Someone like myself, I'll look at work and say, well, that's okay work. It's respectable. No one's going to, but I notice all these flaws in it. A lot of people don't notice those flaws, and they're great with it, but I see where I didn't shine as well as I'd like to. So, and time polishes that up. When you're not shining, time and your experience helps you cover that up just with gut instinct. So it's not always fun. It's hard. It's hard, especially when you've got the task of doing something differently than it's been done before.
Yeah, and then you have, technical things. So you have a mix, especially with all of the computer generated media or media that needs to be presented in a certain way.
Yes.
Timing, all the technical stuff. And I think a lot of times, a lot
of people think that the computer's the brains of it all. The computer's not the brains of it all. It's like the computer is more like the engine of a car. People like you and me drive that car. That car doesn't do anything without us. And that car's got a lot of features and a lot of neat tricks it can do, but not without someone telling it to do them or telling it to combine those features in a certain way. There are a lot of things it'll do right out the box that anyone can do. And I used to have a design instructor that would say, any monkey can be taught how to resize a picture, but we don't employ monkeys. And he'd have a picture of the see no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil monkeys behind him whenever he'd tell us that. So But I got what he was saying. He said you've got to excel past what the computer gives you right out the box.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the misconceptions we have. The mechanical tools are so much more easily available these days than they've ever been, and it's good in some ways. It's scary in some ways because you get some great things from people that you would have never expected it from, and then you get some things led in the wild that they're kind of scary, and they kind of make you cringe a little bit, and you want to go, oh, please let me help you. I could have helped you do so much better, but you can't say it because sometimes they're your friends and family.
Yes. Well, what about creativity? Is that something that you're either born with it or not, or can it be learned?
I do not think that it's something that you're born with. I think that some people are born with more of a predilection towards it.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's something, it's like going to the gym and working out. If you want stronger muscles, you go to the gym and you work them out. And I think of creativity as a muscle like that. And you've got to feed it. You've got to exercise it. So it can be learned. And like I said, different people are going to exhibit different degrees of that, but it's something that can be learned.
And when we think of creativity, I know for myself, I really like to broaden that. When we say creativity, we think creating art, we think writing, we think the arts in general, and we put it in a box, which is kind of a weird thing to do with creativity, but it's really part of so many things. It's problem solving and other things. Where do you see creativity in need, kind of in the world around us, or the need for creativity, or see people flourishing?
Oh, you're going to, I don't ever make a policy of talking politics. So I'm just going to stay kind of broad on this one, but I'm going to say politics government is in huge need of creativity, because so many times there's either one solution or another solution, and you've got to choose one or the other. Mm-hmm. And there's not really a lot else explored, or at least it doesn't seem like there was. And I used to have college professors in design school who would say back in the 90s that government is not built to be creative. Mm-hmm. And as I've gotten older, I've tended to agree with that, because I see so many people say that it's got to be A or B. And I'm one of these people that says, well, it doesn't have to be A or B. We're choosing to limit it to A and B. Mm-hmm. So I think that's probably the most glaring one. And I think because it's so broad, I don't know if it will ever get much creativity in there. So.
Yeah, it's dangerous to be creative and to not adhere to either A or B in that field.
Yeah. Well, and that's why that's what creatives have fought against. The good ones have fought against their entire careers. People like me are expected to be the flaky screwball that sits in the corner, that's socially awkward, and we don't like to show him to the world. Mm-hmm. And that's not what we train creatives to be. We train them. Gosh, when I taught creativity classes at community college, one of my biggest preaching points with one group of my students was, you guys have got to communicate. You have got to speak. You've got to learn to talk. I would get after them about, you can't mumble, because when you mumble, people think you don't stand behind your ideas. Yeah. And it's all in details about how it's not just what you make, but how you present it and how you stand behind it and how you empower it.
Yeah, that's huge.
And that's probably the biggest frustration with me when I see people want to get into fields that require creativity, is they oftentimes think, I've shown up, I have an idea, because I've shown up and I have an idea, and it's great. And that's not the case at all. I've seen tears in classrooms from that when people get critiqued, and it's very, very difficult for especially younger ones that are just getting their first exposure to this in some kind of creative teaching in school. They may have never had their ideas critiqued before. It's rough in college. It's rougher when you've got a lot of dollars behind it.
Yeah.
So when there are a lot of dollars behind it, there's no room for there's no room for softness sometimes. So it doesn't come out as much. We'll put it that way.
Well, let's talk about the critiquing and kind of that as a creative. Like, how does that make somebody better? What's a good critiquing process look like that's going to help somebody grow?
Oh, a good critiquing process makes it about the work, not the person.
Mm-hmm.
That's what would come from the critiquer. The person that's being critiqued needs to understand that it's nothing personal against them. They've done some work that needs some adjustment. And they're not saying that they're an awful person because they might not like the work. I've had plenty of people I like who I don't like the work, and I've had plenty of work that I like from people that I can't stand. But that would be the primary thing, is it's not personal. It's never personal. If it gets personal, it's no longer a critique. It's just kind of a bash session.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, you do find those in schools, and you have to be aware of them. The other thing that makes a good critique is for the person receiving the critique to understand that they have the choice to accept what's being told to them. It's not required for them to accept it. Now, in a job, there might be a scenario where the boss comes in and says, "Hey, I don't like green. Let's make it pink." But in a job, if you don't make it pink, you probably will get fired. So you have to choose your battles there. I'm not going to get fired over pink when I think it should be green. It's just not worth that to me.
Yeah.
But that's also a part of it. I used to have a boss that would say, you have to decide when in the process of critiquing the juice is worth the squeeze. When is it worth it for you to fight? And I tell people that, and they immediately think fisticuffs and beatings, and that's not what it means at all. It means stand up and have an opinion. Mm-hmm. And if you believe in your work and you feel that it's getting unfairly critiqued, you have the freedom to defend your work. I want people to defend their work. I never go at it with the expectation of forcing someone to defend their work, but I want to hear why they made something. That critique process would have to bring out why something is or isn't valid. Mm-hmm. It has problems to solve, and did this solve them? So I've thrown out a lot of stuff right there. It all kind of meshes together, but it's not ever about tearing something down. It's about pushing it forward to the next step.
Yes, it's always about moving towards improvement and growth, and you're also looking at the person, hopefully, and growing them. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So there's a real positive bent to it. Not that you just compliment, everything that somebody does, because that's not really helping them.
Yeah, and complimenting, a lot of people think that complimenting, and this is one of the things I'd have to tell my younger students, a lot of people think that complimenting is helpful, and complimenting isn't always helpful, especially when, some students in colleges, they don't want to feel like they're being mean to other students, and so they won't say anything that's not nice or that they think is not nice. And I've had to kind of box them in and say, you have to give each one of your students, you have to write down, because they get uncomfortable when they have to audibly share it, I found. You have to write down 3 ways in which each of the students today that present their work can improve their work. That means you've got to find something wrong with it, first of all. And that's tough for them. It was tough for me, and especially being when I was first starting out as a college student, I kind of went overboard. I was in with some sarcastic students, and we kind of lapse into making fun of work, and because we'd seen other people do it, and then we realized, that's not really helping them at all.
Yeah, you don't want to do it to the point where it can almost be bullying, or just right. Because a lot of times we're our own worst critic, and then you bring it up there, and everybody's confirming my worst fears about. It's not about my artwork anymore. It's about me. Mm-hmm.
Yep, I will always remember one instance when I was in my second year of design school. We had some tough teachers, And they would always preach about listen to what we're saying, not what you think we're saying.
Mm-hmm.
And so we had one girl that said, I don't know that I believe in my work here, so would you just criticize me? And the instructor took that as an opportunity to reinforce his communication theory. And he says, well, your hair is ugly and don't even get me started on that shirt. And she kind of looked at him like, wait, what did you just say? He said, well, you said criticize you. And then she got it. I mean,
Yeah.
it hurt her at first, but then she got it. She's like, oh, okay, I see what you're saying here now. Now, will you critique my work? So,
But I bet that it changed the way that she thought or, spoke and maybe even the way she thought about herself and presenting herself and her work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember it 20 years later. So it totally impacted me to see that.
Yeah, it's fine. And I love that it's done, was done in a teaching point and that they follow through with the actual teaching and didn't just leave that hanging out there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Especially when you're doing work, there's creative work that you can do for yourself. And then there's creative work that has a goal behind it and communicating and they can be combined. But, when you're doing things for other people, there's a goal at the end of that. You're trying to increase sales. You're trying to communicate an idea. There are so many things involved in that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I used to get into a debate with an old communications director who would tell me we would, and this is one of the things creatives find out the hard way a lot of times. There are times when you're trying to solve a problem, people don't understand that you need information. And when you ask, it's not anything for you to shame a creative about. If they're asking you for some clarification or some information that helps them set a direction.
Mm-hmm.
But I had one that just kept shoving a project back in me. And she literally said, you're the artist. It's your job to come up with something. And I would kind of give it back to her, trying to be nice and say, no, I need this information before I can go anywhere with it. I need to know if you don't like pink, I'm not going to make it pink. That's why I have these questions. She said, no, you're the artist. You're the creative person. And after about 3 times of that go round, I finally said to her, no, we're making advertising. Art hangs in a gallery and I do it for my own pleasure. This is not art. So she finally answered my questions at that point.
So you had to get past that kind of block in her mind.
Yes. And that's one of the things that I tell some of my students is that when you're a creative working professional, like a designer or a writer or anything along that, an illustrator, it's not your opportunity to have free expression there because you're working for someone who has an expectation. Your opportunity for free expression is when you do your own work for yourself, and you don't have to answer to anybody. You don't have to meet anyone else's expectations. If it's your work, it's your work. It's for you. But when it's for, like, if I were to do some work for you, you will set the guidelines for that for me, whether you know it or not. You will set the direction for how that goes and the limitations that I have to work in. Sometimes they're creative limitations. Sometimes they're mechanical limitations. I've done T-shirts, and I always tell people anyone can go crazy when they've got all the colors in the rainbow to play with. But sometimes T-shirts only have 2 colors, and you got to do great work with 2 colors.
Right. Unless you've got, an endless budget for all those extra passes on the screen printing machine.
Oh, yes. Yes, there are limitations that are set that you cannot control, and I worked with so many people that would get upset with those limitations. And I know I worked with one group at one point that I would say, gosh, guys, you had 3 days to do this project, and you spent 2.5 of them complaining that you've got a limited budget, and we could have already had this done.
I was going to ask if limitations can actually help creativity or force you to be more creative.
I think that they do, because they help you know what road you need to start going down. It takes it from this really broad, wide open, blank white page in front of you that's intimidating down to still a blank white page, but a lot narrower. You know that if you have a two-color T-shirt job that's going to be blue and white, you know you're not going to design anything red in there.
Yes.
Or you know that you have only so much of a size that you can work within. You're not gonna do a 2 foot by 2 foot mural. So I think it helps. I think I think those things are the difference between art and design. So
that's cool. I want to
art
go back.
Doesn't have to have parameters. So
yeah. Well, let's go to the kind of the art and things we do for our personal experience, or things we do for fun, or maybe to try something new versus what we're doing. You have different websites for different things, or different outlets for
yes.
different types of work you do. So what would you say to somebody maybe struggling with that? Well, what am I? Am I an artist, or am I it's almost that sometimes creative folks struggle. I think this is what I'm going for, is the struggle.
No, I agree with it. We get stuck in what I hear called analysis paralysis. And I know that John Acuff says, nobody ever sees it when you don't turn it out. So no one has an opinion. It's reaching nobody if you don't let it out, even imperfect or unfinished, or where you don't even understand it. And that happens. Sometimes you don't understand it yourself. But I have 4 that are out there, and they're in various stages at this point of completion. I have my main one, which is just brianmays.com. And that one right now is just a placeholder, but I'm working on some things for it. And I would describe that one as my personal website, which means I put whatever I want in there. It doesn't have any goals. The way I described it to my wife is, this website is my sketchbook. And it's set up like a sketchbook. It's going to be loose and not unstructured. And it's going to resemble the weirdness that you see in my notebooks. Cool. There's not going to really be a theme there. It's just going to be whatever I want. Now, it's going to have a lot of art type stuff in it, because I have some nerdy things and some cartoons and some Star Wars stuff, of course, is going to seep in there, because that's one of those things that's just been in my life the whole time. But and then I have my art portfolio site, and there all I've got is just a listing of some portraits that I've done. Not a lot more than that. That site is not even trying to get business. It's just there to say, I do art. Here it is. You want to talk to me? Here's a box for it.
Yeah, and you do some really nice work.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I am going to have to make a slight adjustment in something this year I do with it. Usually I've done either portrait drawings, or I teach little quick drawings on Halloween. And this is going to be the first year in 4 or 5 years that I'm not going to do that on Halloween. We're going to go do some family Halloweening this time. So Daddy's not going to work on Halloween this year.
There you go. That's good too.
Yeah. So, and then I have my professional graphic design portfolio site, which I'm still working on. And all that is me saying, I'm a designer, I'm a professional, here's my work. If you want to talk to me, here's a little box to talk to me with.
Yep.
And then both the art and design site are going to have a link over to my business site, which is called Play and Dream. And it's going to link over there with a message that says, if you want to commission me, if you want to hire me, anything like that, you need to go over to this site right here and do it through there, because that's my business site. And that's where I try to get work. And so that's where I'm going to have the opportunity to get a commission for a portrait, or to hire me to do your graphic design work, or to hire me to train you in some of your graphic design software.
So you've got a lot of avenues. And I think that's one of the things that's so wonderful about the times that we live in. The ability to work in so many different streams, and to share things in so many different ways.
Part of the reason that came down is sometimes people just wanted to see what I did, but they didn't want to see it encumbered by all the other things that it's tangled in with. So me sticking my graphic design professional portfolio into my personal website, which I had there since 1998, that was sometimes hard for people to see past some of the silly things that I put in there. Like my countdown of Christmas songs people probably never heard. They get hung up in that. or someone wanting to hire me for a position. They would go into that site and again see some of the sillier things when I'm really wanting them to see my my graphic design work.
Mm-hmm.
So, and all four of those sites are going to live off of each other,
Mm-hmm.
but I needed a way to be able to focus them. So they may not be interested in everything that my business does. They just want to kind of primarily see, what's Brian do as a graphic designer? Because I want to see if he knows his stuff. That'll get a little bit lost in the company in the business website, but it just kind of helps me control the flow a little bit. And that, but in a year I may see that doesn't work out very well that way. So that's one of the neat things about being a creative is things just aren't sometimes ever done when we're doing our own things.
But you also get the ability to kind of keep switching them around because, it's like you've created, 4 magazines that are now printed and you've got 500 of them in your garage and, you have to stick with that plan until all those are gone.
Yep.
With the new one.
Yep. Well, and the initial reason for me doing my business, because sometimes people raise their eyebrows when I say I have my personal portfolio and my creative company separate. I have 2 reasons for doing that. One of them is that the work that's in my portfolio site is work that I have done for employers. There's a lot of that in there.
Mm-hmm.
That's the work that Brian Mays did personally. But I don't always feel good about putting that in my company website because my company didn't do the work that I did for the private school that I worked for. Mm-hmm. And that's just, the private school probably wouldn't care ever, but I don't want to create any muddiness there. I don't want people thinking that, oh, that private school hired this company, so it must be an awesome company. Well, the private school didn't hire that company, and I like to try to play right by everybody.
Yeah, well, that's good.
And you know what? I'm getting old, and what was the second one I had in mind? Oh boy. So yeah, I am getting old here. I don't remember things very long. So that's probably the number one primary reason. We'll put it that way.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Just to keep those, and you could, it's no problem for somebody to look at two sites if they want to, but it's great to understand who you're speaking to and know where to point them.
I remember what the second one was.
Yeah.
So it takes me a little while. I originally started my company because I want to drive towards doing more kid-related stuff and design and creative work for kids, teaching kids how to do some things that I do, and also then making creative work for organizations that support children. So, for instance, things like the adoption agency that we use to adopt our youngest son. That's an organization that supports kids. I'd be happy to pursue work from them. People that need design work for toys or children's presentations in churches or something like that. Those are all things that interest me, and they're what I'm trying to move toward. I'm still doing straight corporate work quite a bit, and so I plan to have a line on my site that says I work with the young and the young at heart, and I play with adults well too, something along that line.
Yeah, I like that. I
haven't quite fine-tuned that. So.
Something I had seen that you had put out at some point said that your mantra of sorts was "Be nice, have fun."
Yes, that used to be on the front of my website at one point. Yep, it was "Be nice, have fun," because I enjoy my work more when I'm able to be a nice guy and when I'm trying to be nice, when I'm working with people that are being nice, and when people are just out to have fun doing things. If I have the choice, I try not to work with grouches. So. Oh
yeah, I'm right there with you. Absolutely.
There have been a couple of people that I have turned away just because I thought, oh boy, there's some shade being thrown all around, and we haven't even started. Okay, I don't think this is going to work.
Ouch! Yes, turn and run away.
Mm-hmm.
If you've got somebody who's maybe got that creative bent that you mentioned earlier, that towards being creative, how do you nurture that?
I would say the biggest thing is you've got to do, and I'll just start with someone that let's set it out like we've got a little avatar. I've heard that used. I'll
Yeah.
give you, for instance, I've known people that say, hey, I'm in a job and I'm in there and I'm working, I'm a manager at Walmart, but I really like doing these paintings on the side. And I'm wondering, do you think I can do anything with them? I'm not sure I should pursue it, and this and that and so on. What I would tell that person is two things. One is keep making stuff. Just keep making stuff. You don't have to make this huge volume of it, but just keep doing it. And do it because you're happy with it, not because someone says that they like it or someone thinks you should be happy with it. And then just tell people here and there about it. Get some feedback, preferably from people that aren't family, because they mean very, very well when they talk with you. And they will often not give you any constructive feedback. They'll give you compliments, but get some feedback. But along with that feedback, just let people know what you're doing. And creativity, we've talked about how it's problem solving, but it's all about risk too. My son had some great preschool teachers that said something that I've picked up and stolen from them. They used to say, you have to risk to try. And you'll never know if you can do it if you don't give it a try.
That's so true.
I would encourage them to figure out how they could develop really thick skin, because that's what it takes. 20-year-old Brian wouldn't like some of the criticisms I might have gotten this last week. 44-year-old Brian doesn't even faze him. It just means we just move forward. And I don't even remember getting any rough criticisms in any way. But 20-year-old Brian would have taken any criticism as rough. So that's just something that has to come in time. You don't want to not care, but you have to let it not penetrate into your soul when you get it.
Yeah. Well, that's good, because you've got to be able to grow, to learn, develop that muscle of creativity, so to speak.
Yep. And I kind of say that pointing at myself a little bit, because I think I had mentioned to you, it's been a while since I've consistently done portraits. And so I'm wanting to get back into it. And so I need to get back in and work those muscles a lot, because they don't have the strength that they used to. It's all there. It's just kind of like you have to unlock the memory for it. You have to, everything, you come up with good ideas, you do good work. So it's in your mind. It's just not in the place you're used to normally going to find it when you haven't used it in a while.
Well, that's good. Yeah.
So you have to look in a different room inside your brain.
That's a great way to put it. Yeah. It's in there somewhere. Just move some things around and it'll show up.
I think one of the other things I'd tell someone is to not think that they have to do everything that comes their way. I've had people come to me and want me to do, they've wanted me to do full body drawings of people, and that's not something I'm good at. So as much as they may want me to do that, I can't do it. There was someone, one of my best clients, freelancers I've got right now, they wanted me to do some website work, and I did one project for them web-wise, and it got done okay, but I didn't feel like I did a great job with it, and I struggled with it a lot. And when they hit me up for another one a year later, I had to go to them and say, I don't think I'm your right choice for this. And of course they asked why, and I said, I didn't get you from point A to point B in an efficient manner, and I know someone that can, and I highly recommend them, and they'll get work done in 30% of the time it took me to do your job for you. Everything else, feel free to send my way. I love doing your work for you guys, but this particular thing isn't my strength, and I don't think it ever will be. So
that's really good advice, I think, because when when you're working kind of outside of there's working outside of the kind of the sweet spot to stretch yourself, maybe learn a new skill or try something to see if you like it or if you're good at it or whatever. That's one thing. But like you had that experience, you went that direction, you did that work, and you knew this is not for me.
Yes, it didn't feel right. And I didn't think I did a good job for them. They thought it was fine, but I told them I appreciate you saying that, but gosh, it wasn't a good fit. It was like putting a glove on a foot for me. I could make it work. Anyone can make a glove fit on their foot if they really stretch it the right way, but it's not going to be comfortable or fit really well and probably come off. I thought I took their site down a couple of times. Like, guys, you don't need someone doing that to you.
It takes courage to do that.
Yeah, and we'll go back to 20-year-old Brian. 20-year-old Brian would have never told anyone no.
Yeah.
He would kind of bluffed his way through. 44-year-old Brian is more like, no, I don't think that's something I better try there.
Yeah.
And he's okay with saying no on some things.
Yeah. Oh, these are great life lessons. I think I could have saved myself quite a bit of trouble in some of my work in the past if I'd have learned to say no to things.
Yep. We all have a long list of those.
Yeah. It's kind of part of the process, though. Well, Brian, I really appreciate you being on the show today.
Oh, no problem. I'm glad you let me talk your ear off. So, I get passionate about it.
I know, and that's what makes it so fun to talk with you about it, though.
Well, I appreciate that.
Well, cool. Wish you all the best. Looking forward to seeing those sites come out. And in the show notes, we'll have links to things as they come around. I'm Kay Helm. Until next week, this is the Your Voice Podcast. Find your voice, tell your story, change the world.